Welcome in to Check the Monson. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live. Well, that's right. Live on YouTube. And it's not just the instant reaction, Sam. It's the full thing. We're going through both games. Chiefs and Eagles, a rematch from the Super Bowl, 57? 2 years ago? Chiefs, Eagles, man. And we just saw another epic match between... Match? What? Game? What am I doing?
Look at you, all European.
Wow. You rubbed off on me in a terrible way. What a game. Bills, Chiefs once again. And the Chiefs just feeling inevitable once again, Sam, 32-29 in another game where it just feels like one extra play or two that the Chiefs make that the Bills don't.
Yeah, and look, Kansas City played well. They deserve to be there. They were the better team. It didn't feel like we got the best version of the Bills, though. Like, I really from the outset. I mean, Josh Allen was off early in the game. I think he pulled himself together as the game went on. But, like, the whole thing felt like Buffalo just was not – they hadn't brought their A game to this contest. And, I mean, Romo was making this point constantly. Like, if you're not going to bring your best game, you're not beating the Chiefs. Like, they played well. They're ready for January football. They're ready to go to the Super Bowl. If you want to beat them, you need to show up with the best game you can bring to the table. And Buffalo just didn't. I mean, the turnovers were obviously the most obvious element of that, but like this just did not feel like the best version of the Bills. And you're not going to beat them that way.
And early on, I mean, Josh Allen, two out of his first three plays were almost intercepted. He had two fumbles in there. They recovered both. The fumble luck was kind of going the Bills' way here, including that 4th and 1. One of them, I mean, there's so many plays to talk about, but one of the 4th and short QB sneak conversions, Allen goes over the top like it's the goal line. You don't go over the top unless it is the goal line because it's easy. Even if you are a cyborg like Allen, it's easy to fumble, and he kept recovering those fumbles. So it did feel like the Bills actually got some of the luck. I will say after all that, we'll work through all the key plays. They're up 1, into the fourth quarter, and that QB sneak that they end up reviewing, they called him short, they reviewed it, they uphold it in favor of the Chiefs. Then the Chiefs go down and score the go-ahead touchdown. That felt huge, and I thought reasonably we all felt like he got to the 40-yard line. Ball was at his chest. I think they only needed like half a ball, and I thought he got it, but still might be one of the calls that people are talking about, not to take anything away from the Chiefs.
Yeah, it will be. I mean, but the thing is, it was one of those plays where, I mean, I put it in I sent it in the message, like immediately it happened. Like he absolutely cleared the plane, like broke the line to gain, but there's no way they're going to give it to him based on the replays. Like you can't see the ball. And whilst I agree, it's definitely over the line somewhere in there. Absent seeing the football on the replays, they were just never going to give them that play. So as much as like it's an incorrect call because the ball was definitely over the line at the time, it's the kind of incorrect call that they make in that direction all of the time if you can't see the football. So yeah, like that definitely screwed Buffalo, but it was sort of within the realms of you get screwed by that call all the time.
Yeah, I mean, look, Kansas City, another 3-phase win. I know they gave up 29 points, but you get another one of those 4th and 5s back-to-back, 3rd and 5 and 4th and 5, classic Spags. He's going to go all-out blitz. And it's not as simple as, hey, I know the blitz is coming. You don't know where it's coming from. You don't know who the free rushers are. On that 4th and 5, there's like 3 free rushers on Josh Allen. He still heaves the ball up and has Dalton Kincaid. I mean, it's not the route, but Kincaid works his way back into it. He's right at that you're in field goal range marker, and the ball goes through his hands. I mean, when we get to these games, there'll always be those one-off plays that we look back at, and I know that has to make Bills fans sick thinking about that one play with Kincaid having the opportunity for the long 4th down conversion.
That was Allen's miracle play. He made it. I mean, that was the blitz was dialed up. They didn't expect it. There was immediate pressure. Allen is dead. The play's done. And it looked like he just heaved up a prayer, and he actually puts it right in the correct spot where Kincaid can come back to it. He got there, and he just dropped the football. Okay, it was, it's not the easiest catch in the world because you've got to adjust. You're coming back. It's low. But, dude, catch that ball. I mean, you have to have that. It's like the Mark Andrews play for Baltimore. Is it exactly where you would want it? No, but you got to catch that. That's almost the game right there. That would have been a huge play for Buffalo to keep that alive, put themselves in field goal range, and potentially have that go-ahead touchdown if they can keep that drive going. But again, they couldn't make those plays. Like Allen had a bunch where he didn't make it. Kincaid had that one where he didn't make it. There was a play that was a big sequence before halftime where Curtis Samuel drops a ball where it was a bad location from Josh Allen. The throw was bad, but it was one he should have caught. Drops it, ends up, that was 2nd and 10, I think. It would have been, if he just caught the ball that was bad, it would have been, 4 or 5 yard gain. If Allen had hit him in stride, it would have been like a 20-yard gain because it was a busted coverage. Instead, 2nd and 10 becomes 3rd and 10. They end up having to punt that away. That's when the big punt return happens. Kansas City scores at the end of that, and suddenly, like, this like domino effect from Josh Allen being slightly off on a throw to turn what could have been a big gain for them into an incomplete pass and then a 3rd down failure. That ends up with Kansas City scoring a touchdown like before halftime and putting like Buffalo in a hole.
But and even after that, and this is what it felt like, I think, from a Buffalo perspective, where you need all of those things to go your way. You can't make mistakes. You can't have lulls like that, right? They're down 21-10, and they still make the miraculous 29-second left touchdown. Josh Allen to Mac Hollins. Allen, in crunch time, a bunch of times in this game, did make some huge big-time throws down the field. And I'm not saying I didn't like the Bills' game plan, because they did something kind of similar to what the Texans did last week. They came out in the second half, ran it right down Kansas City's throat, and did an unbelievable job of controlling the ball and saying, hey, we're going to run the ball, get back in rhythm. That's when they took the lead. It did feel like for a short time Buffalo might be able to, get control of this game once again, which is why that 4th down stop was so huge. They're up 1, driving to try to go up, 8 at worst, and people are already asking, hey, if you were to score a touchdown, would you go for 2 to try to go up 9? You got to play this aggressive game against Kansas City. We didn't get to see that. I do believe on the other side, though, Kansas City's offense, man, they just had so many answers for everything. Losing Christian Benford early was a massive blow to Buffalo. And look, say what you want about Romo. He was highlighting it a lot. They wanted to play a lot of man coverage. Kansas City, whether Benford was in there or not, they did have great answers, right? They were rolling Mahomes out a ton. They got him on the edge a lot as a designed runner, just a random, bootlegs, whatever it was. They did a great job using Mahomes' legs, moving the pocket, protecting the offensive line that we talked about was one of the worst that Mahomes has played under. So just a lot of good things, I think, from Kansas City schematically. And, of course, Mahomes, other than that one fumble, right, plays another outstanding, clean game.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like Kansas City's game plan on both sides of the ball was better than Buffalo's. You're right. Like, they generally had the answers, but the drop-off from Christian Benford to Kaiir Elam is amazing, which is even more remarkable when you consider they came from the same draft class, and Elam was the 1st-round pick, and Benford was the 6th-rounder. Like, the dynamic between the two of them makes perfect sense if you just flip the order they were drafted in. If you thought if you thought that Benford was the 1st-round pick and Elam was the 6th-rounder that's just somehow still on the roster, that would make total sense. You'd be like, oh man, the 1st-rounder's done. Now this 6th-round scrub has come in. They're in trouble. Only it's the exact opposite. Like, Benford beat him out almost immediately. He's the good player, and Elam is just a total bust. He can't play. Like, they know he can't play. He's only still on the roster because he's a 1st-round pick, and they haven't really found the obvious sort of way of just getting rid of him at this point. But they don't want him on the field. This has happened multiple times when he's had to come in. He was getting absolutely barbecued repeatedly. The little montage they pulled up in which the worst play was the one where it went somewhere else completely, but he gets beaten so bad in the break that he spends 5 seconds falling over. Like, he couldn't even fall over quickly. He just sort of just falling out of control for about 4 seconds in the wrong direction. So that by the time he finally went face first in the turf, his dude is like 25 yards that way with no one around him. That has a huge effect on what you can do from a defensive point of view. And obviously had an effect, but like, Kansas City were really good regardless.
In the first half, I made the point on Twitter, Chiefs had 4 drives other than the kneel at the very end. 4 drives, 3 touchdowns, and one where they're in the red zone and Mahomes, they botched the handoff or they botched the snap. So it did kind of feel like, if we were being honest with ourselves last week, and we mentioned this on the preview show, can you play bend but don't break? Can you give up all those yards and just always force the turnover. And again, I think the fact that this was, for all the what ifs, I think going Buffalo's way, hey, Dalton Kincaid and 4th and 1, for all those what ifs, I do feel like Buffalo maybe got more of the what ifs. Not that they got, but like all the fumble luck, right? They recovered Kansas City's fumble. They recovered 2 or 3 of their own fumbles, got away with some turnover-worthy plays from Allen. And again, they weren't stopping the Chiefs' offense in the first half unless the Chiefs forced it themselves, right? The Bills jumped on the fumble, but it was an unforced error, right? It wasn't anything the Bills really did. So they made a few key stops in the second half, but then, again, game on the line. You have a couple chances to stop the Chiefs, and they always find a way. And say what you want about Romo, we're gonna roll Mahomes out. Like Romo's knowing what Kansas City's gonna do. The Bills didn't have any answers for Mahomes breaking the pocket either on the design run or on just the sprint out. And I thought Kansas City leaned into that extremely well.
Yeah, I mean, so interestingly, big picture, the turnover stuff did kind of go the same way. Like we were like early in the game, Kansas City is doing what they want on offense. Buffalo's defense giving up a ton. And you're like, yeah, but remember last week, they couldn't stop Baltimore either. It's just that they kept getting turnovers. Like Baltimore outgained them. They were the better team overall if you take out the turnovers. And the turnovers were what swung it back in Buffalo's direction. And that's happened consistently this year. And so the discussion was going into this game, can they continue to win the turnover battle against a team that generally stops making mistakes in the postseason? Well, it didn't feel like that because the first 2 passes Josh Allen threw, he threw to Kansas City Chiefs. But they weren't punished for any of them. Like Buffalo kept putting the ball in harm's way or on the ground, and the Chiefs weren't coming up with it. So the turnover battle was still actually won by Buffalo. They got the one turnover with the fumble, which was a mistake that Kansas City made. They don't make mistakes in the postseason. That was a mistake. They screwed up. They put the ball on the ground. Buffalo pounced on it. Okay, the Bills defense did nothing to earn it, quote unquote, but they got it. So big picture, they did actually get that turnover, win the turnover battle, and that puts you in this coin flip situation. Like the problem is they were still sort of overmatched to the point where either they couldn't make enough plays on their own, or any one of a questionable officiating call, another questionable officiating call, like any one of a few sort of individual plays going against them then is the difference between winning and losing. But like in a weird way, like big picture, it didn't feel like it because the Bills felt like the team that kept putting the ball in harm's way, but they did actually win the turnover battle again.
Yeah, it just felt like because the Bills fell behind early, and again, they flipped it for a minute, right? They got up 1, and then they had, the biggest drive of their season was the one that ended on the 4th and 1 goal line. The QB sneak, where they had already converted a QB sneak earlier on the drive. How many high leverage 3rd and 4th down plays were there? And look, the Bills had a lot of, times that they were stopped on 3rd, got it on 4th, but they missed 2-point conversions. The Chiefs held on those. The Chiefs got their 1 2-point conversion. There was a lot of these little plays that added up. But even, Buffalo, I thought they had a bad play call on one of their 3rd and goals. They throw a fade, didn't really have much of a chance. They come back the next play, still get a touchdown. There was just such a fine margin. It's like describing every Chiefs game this entire season. There's a fine margin where the Chiefs, they did a better job at the margins on those one-off type of plays. And when they needed it in crunch time. And I also think high level, they had an outstanding offensive game plan getting Xavier Worthy involved. When Buffalo did heat Mahomes up a little bit, as usual, he had blitz answers, finding Juju Smith-Schuster over the middle of the field for a couple big plays. The Chiefs just had a ton of good answers for the Bills defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think realistically, if you want the sort of overarching reason Buffalo didn't win this game, they weren't good enough on 1st and 2nd down on offense. Like it felt like the entire game was lived from their point of view in 3rd and 4th down, and it kind of was. I mean, they went for I think 6 4th down conversions because they were always in 3rd down. Like they were like 14 or something 3rd down plays for them. 5
for 14. Sorry, 5 for 14 on 3rd down for the Bills.
Yeah,
Chiefs were
and
5 for 9, and then the Bills went 4 for 6 on 4th down.
Right. So of those 9 failed 3rd down conversions, essentially, they went for 6 of them on 4th down, and that's just, I mean, you are living in a low percentage world at that point. And sure, you've got Josh Allen. You can offset a lot of that. You'll pick some of those up. But number one, that's just a really hard way of playing the game, winning the game. Number two, it really did feel like they just they've run out of creativity from those things. They just decided, we've got Josh Allen. He's a cheat code. We're just going to call the same couple of things in short yardage, and that's good enough because Allen's a freak. And the Chiefs just went, well, we know what you're running. So as good as he is, I mean, we're just going to launch bodies at him and see if that'll do it.
And the way they run, I've always said every team should have the QB sneak package, right? You should line up with the QB sneak and have basically 2 audibles off it, maybe 3, where you can go sneak A gap, you can go either B gap, or you could run wide zone. That was something Brady and the Patriots did really well. They would check to wide zone a lot, right? If they had 3 dudes in the A gap, they weren't going to sneak into that. They were, the defense was down a gap somewhere else, so they'd have a wide zone type of play. It did feel like, again, broadcast called it, Allen's either going A gap or he's, going B gap over the left guard. They need some sort of change up on the goal line. I would love to see more of a jump pass, right? You fake the tush push, you jump pass behind it. It did feel like they ran out of answers. I don't know if that's what ended up costing them, but it did cost them. They kicked the extra point on 1 touchdown. There's an offside call on the Chiefs. Bills go for it and then don't get it. So they essentially take their own point off the board. I think it's the right move too. You take your own point off the board because you think you're going to get it on 4th and goal from the 1. And the Chiefs did an outstanding job stopping the push.
They knew what the Bills were doing, and the Bills had no counter off it. I mean, even the Eagles with their push play invincibility, if you start completely taking the piss and loading up against that in a way that they think is exposing something else, they'll run like the sweep off it, right? They have a counter off the push play if you are, really selling out in a crazy way of stopping it. The Bills were just like, we are going to keep running this play, and that's all we've brought to the table. We have no counter off it. Like, there was like a 25-yard play if they'd run one of those Tim Tebow, Derrick Henry, fake the run at the line and then dink it over the top jump pass deals. They just had no counter for that. And it's too hard. You're making it too difficult if you are telegraphing exactly what you're doing and then trying to do it anyway over and over and over again. And it's interesting, like, everyone thought Romo was great because right at the start of his career, he's like calling the plays because he's actually done research and watched tape and, he's fresh out of the game. So he's busy studying everything. And I think there's been a reasonably tight consensus that he's just stopped doing that over the time, right? You're getting whatever it is, $15 million a year. Like, how much tape do you really need to watch for the next week? And so consequently, he doesn't seem to have the insight that he used to have at the start of his career. But this game felt like he'd watched the tape again. It felt like he'd actually done some prep again. And when Tony Romo knows that you like running your quarterback power or your quarterback sneaks off left guard, not off, not in the A gap or not to the right, when Romo knows that and he's saying that's what you're doing, and the Chiefs obviously know that as well, to not change that at any point. Like Romo is pointing out late in the game, Spags in this situation typically sends the house. My money is he's going to break his tendency now because the game's on the line, right? And it's exactly what happened. He didn't send the house in that play. He dropped everybody, just rushed 4. The smart coaches in the AFC Championship game with the game on the line break their tendencies. The non-smart coaches are banging their head against a brick wall trying to do the one thing that they put on tape 58 times already that the defense knows is coming, and they're like, no, we're just going to out-execute you and do it anyway. And it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, Romo knows these teams because he calls them every single week. That's a big help. He knows the Chiefs and the Bills. I mean, that's the bottom line for me, Sam, because I would say on the other side, you don't really know what you're going to get from Kansas City in any given game. I think Mahomes had an official 12 carries or whatever it is. It was 9, I think, or whatever, 8. I mean, it was less than that because of the kneels, but they were on purpose, right? There was times he broke the pocket and scrambled, but there's a design run. There's a keeper in there.
Which again, tendency breaking.
Yes, and look, I think the old Dr. Eric Eager, when he was a Chiefs fan and not Panthers vice president, and friend of the show, Nick Wright. I mean, it's going to sound obnoxious to non-Chiefs fans when they say, oh, we're just sleepwalking through the regular season. We're saving the good stuff. But you can point to specific plays in crunch time of playoff games where you say, hey, tendency breaker. Hey, Mahomes keeper. He's only done that a few times this season. Every other time, they save some good plays. They save the 2 touchdowns that he threw to Kadarius Toney against the Eagles 2 years ago in the Super Bowl. It's like, those are gimmies. I can make those throws. No offense to Pat going after the GOAT, right? No offense. But those were schemed up, just beautiful plays. And this is, when you look at Kansas City and their greatness, Sam, it has to start with Mahomes. Kelsey's being phased out a little bit, but in any given week, who knows when he can go, 10 catches for a buck. If Zach Ertz can do it against the Eagles, watch out for Kelsey in the Super Bowl. But we're talking Andy Reid's play calling. We're talking Spags dialing it up on key plays. The Chiefs also have the 2 longest punt returns in the playoffs with a rookie undrafted free agent, right? Like, you add all that up, right? It is a full team effort where at the end of the day, they make sure that they're making the plays in crunch time, and they did it once again.
Yeah, and I don't think that, tendency breaking or changing it up, I don't think that means you need to do anything crazy. But, like, again, if Tony Romo knows you are about to run Josh Allen off left guard in the sneak, and you could see from the way the Chiefs lined up, they knew it as well.
They knew.
Why not go right? Like, you don't have to do anything complicated. I'm not asking you to, run some orbit motion, lateral behind the back, like nothing. Just go to the right where the gap is. Like, it's not that difficult, Instead, they're just like, no, this is what we run, and we're going to run it again and bank on the fact that Josh Allen is generally better than the guy that's trying to stop him. And the Chiefs are too good for that.
A couple of the other key plays here. Mahomes on 3rd down, there was a defensive hold, so it wouldn't have been a huge deal, but he heaves it into traffic. It looks like an interception. Xavier Worthy kind of comes down with it. They call it a catch, even after review. I thought that was another kind of questionable one, too. Again, the difference would have been Kansas City ball at the 5 or wherever he caught it versus the 20 with an automatic first down. So it wasn't a huge deal. Kansas City also, who had not been stopped in the game, they're still in pretty good shape there. But I did feel like that was another really close one. I don't know how you give the ball to the offense on that play because it was picked. They both go to the ground. Then Worthy took the ball out of whoever's hands it was, and the ball hit the ground, or at least touched the ground. It felt like incomplete or interception. And then, first down on the hold. What'd you think?
No problem with that play. I think he did take it away at the, eventually on the ground, but he also had a hand solidly on it on the way down as well. More importantly, between the two of them, they had the ball locked up in possession when it hit the ground. It's not like the ground helped either one of them catch it. Their hands were locked on it, two of them, when the ball touched the ground. So I think that was a really impressive play by Worthy, because that's the one where Mahomes puts it up. It's kind of a prayer. It should have been picked off. Cole Bishop kind of did pick it off, and then Worthy on the way down, the 5'10", 160-pound receiver wins a contested catch, rips it away from him, and they get the benefit of the doubt that the ball hit the ground, but it's not enough to have lost anybody possession. I have no problem with that call. I think that was the correct call.
And that wasn't a free play either. That was the holding happened on the other side of the field. I think it was DeMar Hamlin and Travis Kelce. I don't know if Mahomes knew he had a free play. I know the broadcast highlighted Allen on one play where he pointed out a defensive hold on a play. Sometimes you could see that, right? You pointed out a defensive hold and then heaved it into double coverage. And after the fact, it's like, okay, Josh, I understand what you did. I don't know if Mahomes even saw it. So another one where maybe a force that he shouldn't have had that he kind of gets away with. But either way, the end result was going to be in the Chiefs' favor anyway, no matter which way they ruled it.
What did you think of the challenge on that play? Because
I thought it was a terrible challenge.
Yeah.
Because, yes.
All you're getting is if you win that challenge, they are enforcing the hold and it's first down just 20 yards further back.
15, 20 yards, whatever. I thought it was a terrible challenge. I mean, those are the types of things that I watch very closely in these games, right? You never know when you're going to need that next challenge. Timeouts are certainly more valuable in the first half than the second half. The Bills did a nice job. The Chiefs actually blew one timeout in the second half. The Bills did a good job making sure they at least had all three at the end. That stuff is so crucial. Yeah. I didn't love the challenge from McDermott because, look, if there was no defensive hold, I kind of get it, right? Maybe you steal an interception or a third down incompletion. Right. They kick a field goal. There's massive payout there, but not at that time.
Yeah, if there was no hold, I would have said that's worth taking a shot at. It's debatable enough that you might win the challenge just because, these are the types of judgment calls that can go any which way once they start looking at the tape. When you factor in that there's a hole in the play and the best you can do out of this is they get the first down just further back a little bit, I thought that was insane as a challenge. I thought that was absolutely ridiculous as a challenge.
So there was a point in the second half, too. I think it was Seth Walder from ESPN. I think we were like early fourth quarter, and he said Josh Allen in the second half has not thrown the ball beyond the first down or beyond the sticks. I mean, sorry,
right.
Beyond the line of scrimmage. Beyond the line of scrimmage. And it felt a little bit, it was one of those, I don't want to be fully critical because overall the Bills offense was still getting the job done, right? Even if it was a desperate, or like a 3rd and long to Khalil Shakir, a 3rd and 8 to Mac Hollins that put them at the 5. Like they were still moving the ball at some point, but it also felt like, man, like they're doing a good job. They were running the ball like crazy on that one drive, had over 70 yards on the ground. Great. But it did feel like there were certain points where they were taking the ball maybe out of his hands, screen to Cooper, right? You have a 3rd and long. You're expecting the screen from the blitz from Spags, and you throw a screen to Amari Cooper, who looks like running in quicksand, trying to break a tackle, which is like, by the way, the right play call. They had all-out blitz. They had Amari Cooper essentially one-on-one. If that was Khalil Shakir or someone with some athleticism, he could have taken it to the house, but it's old man Amari. So it did feel like there were some plays that were just, again, the Bills might want back either from a play call standpoint or just having the ball in Allen's hands a little bit more.
Yeah, but then, I mean, the flip side of that is like, okay, they got, James Cook was fantastic again in this game, and without him, they're nowhere really in this. And then there's like a couple of massive plays to Mac Hollins, like huge high leverage. I mean, the play, that whole sequence where, Allen misses a 2nd down and then it becomes 3rd down, punt, the punt return goes back. There's that contested catch thing. They get a touchdown off the back of that. Like that whole sequence, you're like, wow, that's a massive swing against Buffalo. But then they drive down and Allen answers with that really big deep shot to Mac Hollins. And it's like, they did that a couple of times in the game, like just when it looked like Kansas City had gotten a couple of breaks and they were starting to turn the screw. Every time that happened, Josh Allen found a way of answering, either in one individual big play or on one key drive where they did convert a couple of those 4th downs or whatever. But like it did feel consistently like they were kind of clinging in this game, clinging just to stay in. And whether it was like a sustained drive where you had to complete a couple of 3rd or 4th downs or like a big play, like you don't need to change much for this game to be quite a comfortable Kansas City win, even though it came down to like individual, like a questionable call here, a contested catch there, a big play there. Like it's really tight, but it felt like it was only really tight by Buffalo clinging on to the coattails the whole way, even though they led for a chunk of the game.
Yeah. And honestly, I do believe, look, last year I think Buffalo was way more beat up, right? They were missing key pieces at every level of the defense. Got to go back to the Benford injury as well. That was huge, right? And we said it before the game. He was in concussion protocol. He comes out of it. Unfortunately, it looks like he got concussed pretty early in the game. And for a team that was playing man coverage this whole game, that was kind of how they attacked Mahomes in the earlier matchup and had a lot of success. It did feel like they're out of their game plan, and Elam was just an absolute mismatch. I also just want to shout out Xavier Worthy generally, right? I mean, the last 2 weeks, the guy that had not been making contested catches starts making contested catches, and he's become a little bit of everything, right? He's the horizontal threat that they get out into the flat. He's not a pure vertical threat that's just getting behind the defense, but enough, a deep out or whatever here and there to, take advantage of off coverage. Worthy has become a pretty good weapon here. And I won't even bring up the fact that Kansas City traded up to get him. We don't have to bring that up, that Buffalo traded down and let Kansas City get Xavier Worthy, but Worthy ends up becoming the leading receiver here, 6 catches for 85 yards and a score.
Well, I mean, it's worth bringing up, though, because Xavier Worthy and Keon Coleman are forever going to be linked for that whole dynamic. And we were kind of saying this, at draft time. We were like, we're going to find out in January. One of these guys is going to have a big game. One of these guys, will get an idea. Obviously, one game doesn't mean anything, but Xavier Worthy makes one of the plays of the game with that contested catch, ripping it away from Cole Bishop. You can debate whether it should have been a catch or not. It ends up being a catch. Like he makes one of the plays of the game and also had, a few other plays, ends up with 85 yards and a touchdown. Meanwhile, Keon Coleman did nothing. absolutely nothing, and was given a couple of opportunities, a couple of contested catch situations, a couple of okay, you are the big contested catch receiver, go make these plays, and nada.
Yeah, we talked earlier in the year, maybe the Bills have built their offense to do a nice job against today's NFL, and they scored 29 points. They had a killer drive with the run game. I thought James Cook ran really well. I know people are asking, where's James Cook? Why doesn't he have 20 carries? There's some game flow issues there, right? I mean, they kind of got out of their game flow, I think, a little bit. But then this game, oddly enough, felt like, man, they could use an X receiver that could beat one-on-one because the Chiefs are going to play one-on-one. And it's the second straight game I'm sitting there pulling my hair out watching the Bills' third down call, and then the fourth down call worked. The first game, when they played in the regular season, the Bills ran it right at Chris Jones on 3rd and 1, and he just blows up the play. It's like, why would you do that? Then they come back and get the fourth down. And in this game, key third down in the red zone, and they throw Keon Coleman fade against Trent McDuffie, the best corner on the Chiefs and one of the best corners in the NFL. It was never on. They didn't even have a prayer. And then they scored the touchdown on the next play. Didn't really matter. But there's definitely certain plays in this game where they needed an Amari Cooper, a Keon Coleman to win some one-on-ones. It turns out it's Mac Hollins, making some big plays. But as far as like pure one-on-one, go beat man coverage, it did feel like maybe they're missing that pure X receiver that they were hoping that either Coleman or Cooper could be.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate for him and for them that like they just didn't have that guy in this game. And okay, Mac Hollins made a couple of big plays, but again, they're just leaving themselves in these situations where it's too low percentage. I mean, an end zone fade, as you said, the fourth down they scored, it didn't matter. But like tossing an end zone fade against the best cornerback on the field to a rookie is it's just a bad play call. It's not going to work. It's a very, very low percentage play call. And that was like your plan for third down. And you were just in such a situation that you need to go for it and fourth anyway. And you found a way of making that happen. But like, I think the difference between the two teams in terms of what they had prepared for this game was stark on both sides of the ball.
All that said, I still love the way Buffalo was constructed this year. I love the fact that they could run the ball when they needed. I think they did a nice job up front against Kansas City. They had opportunities, right? We're talking about a handful of plays that the Kincaid drop, the fourth and inches QB sneak stop. Those are the plays. You say Kansas City made them. Yeah, the Kansas City, I would say, they made the stop on Allen, but man, the Buffalo Bills and their fans are going to be thinking about Kincaid and that drop, I think, on the heave. Any other plays or specific things about this game? I want to talk about what it means, obviously, for the Chiefs, but for the Bills as well.
Big shout out to Joe Thuney, still playing left tackle. They haven't made that switch of going back to DJ Humphries and moving Thuney back into guard. They're like, no, we're happy with this. We know at least what this is. Joe Thuney played well at left tackle. Obviously, he had some help, but he held his own one-on-one on several occasions. Caliendo inside is the weakest link on that offensive line as long as that is the 5. But even
Jordan Phillips had one of those Vita Vea plays you always talk about. It's like, Jordan Phillips, you're 340. Why can't you do it? Actually, my wife was over here like, why doesn't he do that every time? I'm like, well, he's not that great. He does it once in a while. That was an unbelievable sack and a huge play at the time.
Yeah, John Ledyard was like, Jordan Phillips with this like all-time play out of absolutely nowhere. It's like every really good Jordan Phillips play is out of absolutely nowhere. Like he has like 5 plays a season that are amazing and then nothing. But yeah, he wrecked Caliendo on that play. But overall, Caliendo held up fine, which put that offensive line back to being, the usual very solid, very good group that it is. As long as, left tackle isn't this glaring weakness or the left side isn't this weakness. We said coming in, right? Like that's where the bullseye is. Buffalo's defensive line needed to be able to win against that group, and they didn't.
I think a part of that, I'd have to go back and see the flow, but it felt like early on they really wanted to run that 3-man rush with Matt Milano as the spy. There was one key play where it did work. He sacks Mahomes on the scramble, took the Chiefs out of field goal range. That was huge. And then it felt like in the second half, they were trying to speed him up. They were trying to heat Mahomes up. They knew they couldn't cover for very long. And Mahomes, as we always say, he carves up the blitz, man. He knows exactly where to go. You're leaving holes in the defense, and Buffalo got burnt by that. So, again, credit the Chiefs for always having answers, man. And they protected, a left guard playing left tackle. They protect them, and they did a nice job protecting Mahomes and moving the pocket and doing just enough, obviously, to keep the Bills defense off balance. So Chiefs going for their three-peat, obviously historic, fifth Super Bowl that they've been to. They're 3-1 already. Mahomes only been starting for 7 years, whatever it's been. So incredible run here by Kansas City. And now where does Buffalo go from here? Because you're sitting here saying last year felt like could be the year. This year feels like it could be the year. And this unbelievable story that they can beat the Chiefs in the regular season, but not in the postseason. And you're always 1 or 2, 3 plays away. And here we are once again for Buffalo.
I mean, the symmetry with that is getting kind of ridiculous now. Like 4-0, Josh Allen being 4-0 against Mahomes in the regular season and 0-4 against him in the postseason is kind of ridiculous. That should not be possible, the way that these games are all coming down to individual plays. And yet that's what's happening. That's the reality. Whether that's, Kansas City consciously being able to up their game in the postseason, whether that's Buffalo wilting in the postseason under the pressure, whatever it is, it's happening repeatedly in both directions. Buffalo, to me, though, this was the conversation with Dallas, right? If you're getting to this stage, do you make changes because you've hit your level, or do you just keep knocking on the door and eventually it'll open? Because they're hitting Kansas City every time, right? Or most times. Just keep knocking on the door. Like you can beat them. You beat them in the regular season. And even if you have to factor in an upping of 10 percentage points once you hit the playoffs because the Chiefs decide to play better in the playoffs, you've got 10 percentage points in you. Like, we know that. Like, Buffalo could have played 10% better in this game easily. They left plenty of plays on the table. There's 10% better Buffalo performance in this team without changing anything dramatic. Re-up. Let's do it again. Let's go find an X receiver. Let's go try find one of those guys in the draft or in free agency, and let's just come back. Like, eventually, unfortunately, as long as you're in a conference with Kansas City, this is the reality most years, right? And I don't think you need to do anything crazy to try and get past them. You're already meeting them most of the time. You're just going to have to keep banging until you get past.
And this was the year that they kind of reset with a little bit more youth, certainly in the secondary. Bunch of veterans moved on, and they say, this was kind of like Kansas City in 2022, where it's like, hey, it's a half, rebuild, and, old players out, new players in. We're going to get a little bit younger, could take a step back. Kansas City didn't take a step back when they did it in 22. And you could say Buffalo didn't take a step back either. So that's impressive that in the rebuild year, so to speak, that they did make it this far, back to the AFC Championship for the first time since 2020. But hard to not think about all the one-off plays, right? The what-ifs for the Bills.
But, unfortunately, the answer is you don't change anything, really, because I think you would be crazy to come out of this game and be like, clearly we've hit our level. Clearly there's a rotten foundation somewhere in this team, and we need a significant fundamental change if we're ever going to get past Kansas City. So we've got to fire somebody important, or we've got to, gut this part of the team, or, something massive has got to change. I think that would be insane coming out of this game. Okay, you've fallen again at this final penultimate hurdle. The important one, though, in terms of getting past Kansas City. But, again, it was a couple of plays. Everything health-wise on the roster is good. The offensive line's good. The defense is pretty good. The offense generally has been excellent. Your quarterback is good. The coaching is good enough to get you to this point. I don't think you go, well, let's fire the coach because he made a couple of mistakes in the game. I think this is just the reality. You basically need to be almost perfect to beat a team as good as Kansas City, and you weren't, so you didn't.
I saw the negativity in the chat a little bit earlier, too. I said 5 out of 7 years with Mahomes at quarterback, the Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl. I know it's 5 out of the last 6 years, but 5 out of 7 years in which he has been the starter, which is still true because they did not make the Super Bowl in his first year as starter. So incredible run here by the Chiefs, going for that three-peat in their 4th Super Bowl of the Mahomes-Reed era. Anything else before we move on to the NFC Championship?
We should drop that Josh Dubow tweet because it's pretty amazing. When Patrick Mahomes went down 1 to 8 points in the fourth quarter or overtime of playoff games, is 40 of 56 for 552 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions for a passer rating of 132.2, and he has a touchdown run in there. The Chiefs scored on 13 of those 14 drives. And I think the other part of that was that the rest of the league is combined for a passer rating of like 70, 77 or something. So again, it's just 71.1.
Is that
so
his
again,
last 14 drives then?
13 of the last 14 he'd scored in.
So those numbers are going back to like a certain time period. I mean, that's incredible.
It's like career. When he's down, when he's trailing by 1 to 8 points in the fourth quarter or overtime of a playoff game, he's God. So it's just another situation where Mahomes, again, defies all laws, does not behave the way other quarterbacks do. And these are the reasons they win these games. Like, yes, do they also, get a beneficial call here or there? Sure. But like, this is the more important reason. It's like when the chips are down, Mahomes becomes perfect. And when that happens, you need to also be perfect. Otherwise you don't win.
Yeah, I think that's the bottom line. AFC wrapped up for the year. All right, got to tell you about our friends over at PrizePicks. We've been playing PrizePicks all year. You can join as well. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. So you can download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CheckTheMic. You get $50 instantly when you play $5. So again, we've been playing all season. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. PrizePicks invented the flex plays, which means you could still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You could double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy. So your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I get my money in as quickly as 15 minutes. So again, download the app today. Use code CheckTheMic. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CheckTheMic to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, NFC Championship. Philadelphia Eagles back to the Super Bowl, second time in 3 years, third time in the last 8. 55-23 over the Commanders. Eagles with a dominant win. Made some of those key fourth down stops, and 7 rushing touchdowns, Sam. First time since that famous 73-0 game back in the 40s. 7 rushing touchdowns for the Eagles, 3 for Saquon Barkley, 3 for Jalen Hurts, 1 for Will Shipley. And we did get a reminder in the chat. I think we kind of predicted this, right? We said Washington's going to do this really long drive and then, 1 play, Saquon touchdown. That's how this game started. 18-play drive for a field goal for Washington. 1 play, 60 yards for Saquon, setting the tone for the Eagles offense.
Yeah, the start of this game, it was like every now and again you get these games that seem sort of designed to prove that time of possession is not very important. The Vikings and like the 98 Vikings used to have a ton of these games where like the opponent would have 30 minutes of possession, the Vikings would have 3, but they'd be up 28 to 7 or whatever because they just scored with Randy Moss immediately every time they got the ball. It was nuts. Like the first drive, Washington, they go for it on 4th and 5, pick it up. They go for it on 4th and 2, pick it up, and then they settle for a field goal on 4th and 3. To be fair, Ben Baldwin, I think his model had as like a coin flip, so maybe the numbers just said kick there. I kind of wonder whether it went through his head that our chances, you're never going to pick up 3 of them, right? 3 in a row, 4th downs. Yeah. That's crazy. We got to kick it here. Let's not push our luck. It's like when you've gone, I'll hit black, right, on the roulette wheel and then black again. You're like, well, it's not going to be black 3 times in a row to switch. It felt like that's what he did. And then boom, first play, Saquon on some of the worst defending you're ever going to see. Like this was this game, right? The Eagles are great. Saquon was a phenomenal, all those things. And yet Washington's defense and generally Washington was shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly. That defensive sequence on that play. I mean, it was the first play in a while where my brain is like automatically grading it PFF wise. I'm like, there's like 4 or 5 minus ones I can see before we've even got to the replay. Like just from the people I could see at the point of attack, there's like 4 guys getting heavy -1 downgrades. Dante Fowler gets wrecked by a wide receiver falls over and takes out like the entire defensive front. Then both defensive backs were like a complete train wreck once Saquon got through them. He does a spin, he breaks the tackle, and he's off to the races, and he's gone. And it's like, okay, look, we were talking about what do you sell out to stop? But you have to have like a basic level of competence as well. And his second touchdown, I mean, they just blew contain. Like they were doing that constantly in this game where it's like, look, it's hard enough to stop him if you've got everybody in the right gap. But you can't like, oh, look, he might be going inside. Let's just abandon the edge. Like that doesn't work against Saquon. You can't do that and expect to limit this offense to any kind of low level of production.
To stay on brand, we talk about weaknesses showing up in the playoffs, and maybe that's, hey, we kind of knew this during the season. The Commanders, let's be serious. The defense got better in the second half. It's the worst defense out of the final four teams. And all of a sudden, Daron Payne showed up on the injury report, hadn't missed a game in like 5 years. Didn't know that going in until very late. He's 320-pound nose tackle. I'm not saying that changes everything. They had run defense issues even with Daron Payne. But I thought high level, you look at this game, and this was the Eagles offense at its best. This was the best Jalen Hurts has looked for a while as far as throwing the ball. This was Dallas Goedert getting his, A.J. Brown, 96 yards and a touchdown, Devontae Smith, and of course Saquon starting with the 60-yarder, finishes with a $118 and 3 touchdowns. This was the whole deal as far as the Eagles offense. And then the score gets out of hand, right? The reason why it's 55 isn't because they put together 9 unstoppable drives, field position, turnovers. The Commanders had no chance the way they kept fumbling the ball away here.
Yeah, and two of the 3 fumbles were at least credit Philadelphia for they were peanut punch stripping the ball out. I mean, the first one I think was the combination of Zach Bond and Cooper DeJean might have actually been the guy that ripped it loose at the same time Bond came in with the peanut punch. But defenses are so good at that now. That punch play to knock it loose, they did that twice. The other one though was just the kick returner like running into a brick wall of contact and putting the ball on the ground. I mean that's like an inexcusable, like the defense on Saquon's first run was catastrophically bad. That was a terrible, catastrophic play. Like De'Ami Brown fumbling, sort of getting it ripped away / forced away from him. Okay, it's not good, obviously, but credit the defense more than like, oh, that's a terrible play by De'Ami Brown. The Eckler one is a little bit more his fault because he had to go to ground, get himself back up, and then hadn't really secured it properly again. But again, credit them for knocking that ball out. But the kick return one is like, dude, not only did you didn't need to run into that guy in the first place, let alone then put the ball on the ground. But again, it's Washington was the underdog. They're not the better team. If you wanted to win this game, you can't make that volume of mistakes. Like they did what the Lions did last week and just turned the ball over too many times to expect to win.
Yeah, and I'd say this in the pregame, in the preview shows a lot. Like if a team has to go for 4th downs and they don't get them, you got short fields. That's where the score started to get out of hand. It got interesting when Jaden Daniels runs for a 10-yard touchdown to get within 11. Right, so it's 27. Let's back up a little bit. It's 27-12 before the half. Eagles are up. Washington has another impressive quick drive, 5 plays, 46 yards. Jaden Daniels scrambles the key play there. They get within 12 at the half. Eagles come out. They score 34-15. Washington comes back with their own touchdown to get back within 11 after the 2-point conversion. And they made a stop, right? So Washington's down 11, and Jaden Daniels has already, ticked all the boxes this year, right? One of the best rookie seasons of all time. Been great under pressure. Been great in the clutch. And you're sitting there saying, okay, they can make it a game here. 11-point game. And that was when Austin Eckler goes to the ground, comes up, gets the peanut punch, ball comes out, and another just backbreaker for the Commanders. And credit the Eagles, they come back and just run away with it after that. But that was the point late in the third quarter where it started to get kind of interesting, like the Commanders could maybe get back into it.
Yeah, it was weird because and they ended up going into the half down 12, right? Obviously, that's bad. You're down 12. But on the other hand, you're down 12 and you shot yourself in the foot a lot in the first half. Like, this is not this game should already be done, and it's not. It's close enough that you're still alive in it. And they kind of kept coming back a couple of times, and every time they did, they found a way of like blowing it subsequently. And the Eagles, every time the Eagles got one of those breaks, they took advantage huge. So I mean, ultimately, it's like a week ago where 4 turnovers to 0. You're probably not winning that game. In fact, against a good team, you're probably losing that game fairly handily. And that's ultimately the way it went. But as you said, the Eckler fumble was huge. Another play that was huge, they had a stop on defense, and was it Sanders still gets flagged for the late hit out of bounds, extends the drive, the Eagles score, and it's like, every time you've made a positive play, you then screw it up, and the Eagles, every time you screw it up, the Eagles are scoring, and that's how you end up with like 50 on the scoreboard.
Do we have to be critical? I mean, Saquon maybe got away with a hold on a passing touchdown. I thought the Sanders still call was correct. That's one that I would probably want to give the defense a little bit more leeway. If
it's one of those ones where it's like, just don't hit him. What?
Yeah,
he's going out of bounds. Like, why? He ends up clearly out of bounds, right? He's like, comfortably on the white at the point you hit him. But if it's even getting close to that, why go for the hit? Like, he's giving himself up. He's not, lowering a shoulder into you. He's heading to the sideline. All you got to do is make sure you don't let him cut back inside. You don't do anything, and you don't do what you did, which is commit a penalty beyond the white line. Like, it's a totally unnecessary hit from Samersil, which, because he mistimes it, ends up being a critical bank-breaking penalty. Again, on a play where you have the stop. Like, if he ends up going out of bounds where he went out of bounds and you just watched him do it, you have successfully executed a stop on that series, and you're probably getting the ball back without any points going on the board. Instead, you give them 15 yards and a first down, and they end up scoring a touchdown at the back of that.
That led to a touchdown. That one did lead to a touchdown. Another note that I had that's just more of like a high level view here. The new kickoff rules, just kickoffs in general, because I would say this even last year, it's harder to just kick touchbacks in cold weather, in the playoffs, in January. You get more returns. So you have, the Chiefs had the opening kickoff return last week that set up an easy score. You have the Commanders having it, they're taking it out. They fumble. Like some of the Eagles kickoff coverage was outstanding. Those little things are also adding up maybe during playoff time here as well. But look, the Eagles, I thought the story for me, even at the end when they had some of those short fields and everything, how difficult the Eagles offense is to stop when they're all working together, when they're all firing. And Hurts played his cleanest game in a while. Brady was begging for him to throw the ball on time and in rhythm, and I think he did it often enough. Got the receivers involved. A couple plays that they just got the ball to Dallas Goedert in the flat. Thought they did a nice job. Even after Saquon goes 60 on the first play, they didn't just feed him for the next 15 carries. As a lot of people say, why just keep giving it to Saquon? Because the next 8 carries went nowhere. But they kept keeping the defense off balance. They would roll Hurts out. They get Goddard in the flat. Anytime they got A.J. Brown one-on-one, they took advantage. One of the biggest plays in the game was 4th and 5. They hit A.J. Brown with a deep bomb. I want to answer that. A lot of people say, well, why is that your 4th and 5 call? Because that's what the defense gave you, right? Sometimes you don't want to throw the ball 30 yards down the field on 4th and 5. But Washington went all-out blitz up the middle, which they had success with at times in this game. All-out blitz up the middle, and you didn't have a quick answer. You had A.J. Brown one-on-one on Marshawn Lattimore. He cooked him, and it was a great throw by Jalen Hurts. Huge play in this game. So I just want credit Hurts, A.J. Brown, the entire passing attack for getting back on track to complement what Saquon's giving you with those 60-plus yard runs.
Yeah, and I still don't love that as a concept, the deep shot on 4th down, even if you're forced into it with the blitz. But if you connect on it, who cares? Like that.
I'm just saying, the play calls probably you're running a clear out, right? And the other 4 receivers are gonna create some havoc over the middle of the field or whatever it is, right? And it just happened. Okay, when they go all out blitz, he's not a clear out anymore. That's all. I'm not saying the play calls we're going AJ deep 4th and 5. It's where it took you.
Yeah, but ultimately, with all these things, any play call is correct if you end up making the play. Like, it doesn't matter as long as you
Yes.
do what you need to do. And that was a beautiful pass by Hurts. It was a great play by AJ Brown. AJ Brown was absolutely murdering Marshawn Lattimore all game long, which we kind of speculated going in. Like, if you find a guy like Brown who can hold up to the sort of physical bullying that Lattimore likes to do, he's not going to be able to stop him. Like, Lattimore at this point is not where he used to be in his career. I don't know if he'll ever get back there, but right now he's not capable of doing that. And AJ Brown is not going to be physically bullied by a guy that he outweighs by 20 pounds. So Brown was just beating up Lattimore to the point where it felt like he kept him away. Later in the game, it felt like they were putting Sandmerstill on him more, and he wasn't. I mean, he wasn't having a much better time of it either.
Yeah, I just thought some of the Commanders' deficiencies from a roster perspective, and they've had a great season. The offensive line had a lot of issues protecting Jaden Daniels. It's another game. The stat line got out of hand. I think for Daniels, he ended up nothing great, like 29 of 40 for 255, touchdown and a pick. I don't think that tells the story. I thought he was impressive once again. I thought Daniels, his ability to scramble, avoid negative plays, handle the pressure, made a whole bunch of key plays where if he missed it on third down, he was getting it on fourth down. That happened a bunch. So I was impressed once again by the rookie, but the right team won this, right? The Eagles are a better all-around team. I think they're a championship caliber team. We thought it was Eagles and Lions as the best two teams in the NFC. I would still say that's the truth, but credit Washington for getting this far, pulling the upset last week, and creating a fun story.
When Lattimore and AJ Brown were like getting into a full-on scuffle at the goal line, I think we can treat this the way hockey treats fights, right? Where we let him go for a little minute and then we just flag him, right? 15 yards offsetting. Both you guys got to take 10 minutes on the sideline before you can come back, right? I feel like America would have benefited if we just everyone took a step back and let AJ Brown and Marshawn Lattimore go at it for 30 seconds before we throw them both in the sin bin.
Just let them go. I mean, I don't know if I've ever asked you, do you like the baseball dynamic that like it's essentially like just a tradition that they let the manager go scream at the umpire? Like there's no other sport where they stop the game, let the manager go to town on the umpire, kick dirt, do whatever, and there's like no repercussions. You just get thrown out if it goes too far. If you cuss a little too much, you get thrown out.
I might be conditioned by the fact that did I send you this video, the rugby fight that I saw earlier today on Instagram? It was from like some random Ireland versus Wales Six Nations game in like the early 2000s, right? And the clip is like a legitimate MMA ground and pound clip of like Paul O'Connell is in the full guard of this Welsh lock, and he's like landing ground and pound punches on his head for like 20 or so seconds. The other players like run over and then they're like keeping each other back. They're like not actually, not breaking it up. They're like letting it finish, right? While this happened, so then they all get up, it gets separated, blah, blah, blah. And now it's, we got to deal with this. The announcers are busy saying, I don't even think that's a yellow card. I think that's okay. Like nothing really ultimately, who was hurt by it? I say let it go. The ref calls them both in, and he's like, "Look, we've had some good rugby. Nobody saw any punches, so let's just carry on and not have any of that silliness anymore, right?" And the guy who was on the bottom, the guy who was getting the ground and pound, was like, "Yeah, we sorted it out now. Like it's all good.
We're good.
It's all done. Like we worked it out, and now we're good to go."
That's what you wanted to see.
Lattimore and AJ Brown are both like hepped up to the nines because they can't just sort it out. Let them go for 30 seconds, and then it's all done, right? Somebody gets their ass kicked, and then you move on.
The chat is asking me for baseball fight stories, so I got to run through them quickly. My first ever professional game right down the street here in Florence, Kentucky, that my parents came to, we had a bench clearing brawl. I just came in from the bullpen, didn't get involved, nothing there. I played in like a beer league, men's league type of thing in between college and playing professionally. And I was on a team that hated some other team. So I'd have this guy who was like a 35-year-old third baseman, nothing but like 35-year-old beer league third baseman be like, "Hey, hit this guy." I'm like, "Really? Come on." I missed him twice. And next time we played them, I was up in the press box and they got into a brawl. So I'm in the press box, like doing the scoreboard for the game. It's a beer league, and I had to like run down out of the press box and like act like I cared. But they were killing each other, you know? And then in college, I did start a brawl with a guy that ended up becoming a future teammate of mine. And he hit a home run off me. He was trying to date my friend's girl who went to the same school as him. So I put one right in his back. And then we became teammates a few years later. So that was the extent of it. And then I probably shouldn't have given up a home run to him in hindsight.
Yeah, probably not.
Good player. Ended up making it to the big leagues late in his career. So anyway, that's it. Nobody charged me, though, Sam, as you can imagine. Nobody charged me. All right, so we have the other controversy. The refs almost scored a touchdown. They were ready to pull out, dust off the elastic clause, pull off a rule where they could just make up whatever they want. You keep jumping off sides, Washington, on this tush push. You keep going Superman over the top, Frankie Louvu. And guess what? We're just going to hand points to the Eagles. That was a thing here today.
Yeah, which nobody had known about until Mike Pereira is like, yeah, I mean, heads up, they're actually entitled. Like, rugby has a penalty try. Like, if you keep giving away, if you keep stopping them going over with a maul, you just whistle, hand in the air, penalty try. We just give away the 7 points because you stopped a score with the illegal play. I didn't know that existed in the NFL, and apparently nobody else did either, except Mike Pereira, which is like the first useful thing that a rules analyst in the booth has actually said since it became a thing. And then almost as soon as he'd said that, whoever the official was came on the mic and is like, yeah, if Washington keeps doing this, we are at liberty to. Washington has been informed that we can give a score if they keep doing this deliberately. Like, number one, they weren't doing it deliberately. Like, he was just trying to time the snap in an unstoppable play. Louvu had already played Troy Polamalu earlier in the game where he launched himself through the line, perfectly timing the snap, blown up a run play 6 yards deep in the backfield. So he'd already gotten the snap right previously. He was just trying to do it again. That's not a deliberate I'm
he's trying to
I'm not sacking the play so that it can't happen illegally. It's like he's just trying to do the one thing that might stop this play and kept screwing up the timing.
Oh, imagine that. All the discourse we're having about officials. Could you imagine? And I get why they did it. I mean, the part about the Commanders doing it was at the 1 yard line, so they really have nothing to lose, right? You lose a half yard, you lose it's all half the distance to the goal until you can't move anymore. So I get it. It's probably the right move to just keep trying to time it up because the Eagles also can't just get a first down in that point. But I also get from an official standpoint, because then they jumped off sides without the Superman thing. It's like, well, you're not doing it on purpose. You just jumped. You just got fooled by the snap count.
That rule, by the way, is even more unhinged than it sounds when they were just running it through live at the time. And I'm also amazed by the way that it hasn't come up before, the way that it's worded. So Kevin Seifert from ESPN posted this, the actual rule. It's called palpably unfair act. A player or substitute shall not interfere with play by any act which is palpably unfair. So that's the rule, right? Already, I can think of multiple instances where I think you could easily argue that, and that apparently had not come up as, well, let's just give a penalty for this. The penalty for a palpably unfair act. Offender may be disqualified, right? So you can eject the guy for it, first and foremost. The referee, after consulting the officiating crew, enforces any such distance penalty as they consider equitable and irrespective of any other specified code penalty. So they can just make up a yardage total for this, right? Let's say this happened earlier, down on the field. He can just go, that feels like a 67-yard penalty to me. What do you think? Cool.
What I would do.
And then the last part, the referee may award a score, right? So for a palpably unfair act, which is not defined, which is completely arbitrary, the guy can be kicked out of the game, they can award any yardage penalty they see fit, and they can give a touchdown for it.
Did you see the explanation though? The spirit of the rule was okay, we need something in place in case a fan comes out of the stands and tackles Saquon Barkley on his way to the end zone, right?
It's if Mike Tomlin had taken out Jacoby Jones on the sideline.
That was the one I was thinking of, right? Tomlin straight up tripped Jacoby Jones. Can you just, hand over a touchdown to Jacoby? I don't know. Did he have the ball at the time, or was he gunner?
No, he was the return man. He was
the return
about to
man.
house it.
Yeah, so Tomlin should have gotten that. This is not just Vernon Hargraves showing up at the end zone celebrating. That's just merely, I don't know, 12 men on the field, one guy with a hoodie.
I mean, yeah, okay, I get that. I get that that's the intention, but it's so vague that you could argue a bunch of things in previous football games, seasons, years would seem to me to qualify as palpably unfair acts.
Yeah, it was. Maybe they pushed it a little too far. They made for great discourse in a game that was becoming a blowout, though. Then Will Shipley comes in, 57-yarder, could not take it to the house. Clearly doesn't have the top-end speed of Saquon. I mean, Barkley, man, his acceleration on display, outstanding in this game. It is unbelievable. And I know we said, hey, the line is good, and Jalen Hurts is a run threat, all these different things. Give him a crease, he could take it to the house. But once again, very impressed the fact that he can actually do it. And the first run was not all O-line, right? They gave him a little runway, and as you said, he's running dudes over and the whole thing. But very impressive that Barkley can literally score from anywhere on the field and continues to do this throughout this season.
Yeah, it's the breakaway top speed. You're not catching him if you find, like, the first play, I mean, the Dante Fowler disaster at the line of scrimmage, that got him to the second level. Then two different defensive backs made a balls of trying to tackle him. But right at the end, when he makes the cut to the right, the second he took the step to the right, you're like, touchdown. Like, he's gone at that point, right? Shipley shows later in the game, like, he's able to do most of that. It's just the last part, right? Even if he made that cut at the end, you're like, the last DB's maybe running him down. And that was like the difference. Shipley breaks through, makes a couple of nice moves, and then is like running for his life, and somebody's going to chase him down. Like, that's the thing with Saquon. If he gets that final crease and he's capable of making it himself with a move or with a spin or with a broken tackle or whatever it is, the second he makes that last move, nobody's catching him. And that's turning all these plays into, like, there's no cap on it, right? Whatever the yardage is where they start the line, the second he gets that angle and that space at the second or the third level, it's a touchdown.
All right, man. We'll get our early Super Bowl thoughts in a second here, but got to tell you about our friends over at Rocket Money. For me, a top priority this year is financial wellness, which feels more important than ever. Thanks to Rocket Money, my goals feel achievable. So they show me all of my subscriptions right in one place, help me easily cancel ones that I forgot I've been paying for. In fact, we just learned that 85% of people have at least one paid subscription going unused each month. So Rocket Money pulls together all of my spending across all my different accounts so I can clearly track my spending habits and see where I can cut back. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, but it also monitors your spending, helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money's dashboard gives you a clear view of your expenses across all of your accounts. You can easily create a personalized budget with custom categories, help you keep track of that spending. And you can also see your monthly spending trends in each category, know exactly where your money is going. And you get alerts if the bills increase in price or if there's unusual spending or if you're going close to going over budget. Rocket Money will even try to negotiate lower bills for you. So they automatically scan your bills to find opportunities to save. Then you can ask them to negotiate for you. So they'll deal with customer service so you do not have to. Rocket Money has over 5 million users. They've saved over $500 million in canceled subscriptions, and they're saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions. Reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/checkthemic today. That's rocketmoney.com/checkthemic. Shout out for my tent in the background there. The kids. Try to balance the background. I've got a little bit of Steve Bobblehead, Mark Brunell, and a tent.
A tent.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, don't show the full. You cannot show the full view. Come on, guys. I've got
it's carefully positioned so that all the crap is in the tight shot, outside of the tight shot.
Yeah, the tight shot is where I keep it so you don't realize, hey, it's an office / a playroom. My kids destroy this place. It's like trying to protect it a little bit. Early third thoughts on the Super Bowl here, Sam. Eagles, Chiefs, a little rematch from 2 years ago.
Yeah,
did the NFL get it right, Sam? Did the committee get it right?
Is the script correct? Look, I tweeted before the championship games that I think 3 of the 4 teams have a really compelling storyline to them. Buffalo finally getting a Super Bowl, having been 0-4. Obviously, that's gone. Washington with a rookie quarterback and the turnaround that they've had, obviously that's gone. And then Kansas City's quest for this three-peat. I think that Philadelphia is just the least compelling story of the four. Like it's not like they're it's not.
Dude, they got Saquon Barkley, man. That whole story is
It's just less interesting than all of the other options. Like it's fine. It's just relatively benign. But
their collapse last year, bouncing back from it, Big Dom. I wonder if
but
Dom's
like
gonna
you
be at the Super Bowl
you
now.
said it before, right? That they're the third Super Bowl in 6-7 years or whatever it is. It's like good team goes back to the Super Bowl with a good whatever. But the point is, I do think that they give Kansas City the best matchup. Like if this was Kansas City versus Washington, the Chiefs would be heavy favorites. Maybe Washington could pull another miracle, but like we would be expecting a reasonably comfortable Chiefs win. The Chiefs, I think, will still be favorites for this game, but it'll be close. Like this is the best matchup that the NFC can send against Kansas City. I think this is, it's Kansas City's quest for a three-peat versus can the Eagles derail that and, finally and get their own back, get their revenge for the game they didn't win the last time.
As I tweeted earlier this year, Kansas City's calibrated to beat everybody by 3. Look, they just beat Buffalo by 3. They beat the Eagles by 3 2 years ago. They beat the Niners by 3 in the Super Bowl. So I'm expecting Chiefs by 3. But I mean, this is it. I think we do see a great matchup. It is interesting to me that Vic Fangio has turned this defensive around, but I do think that's the matchup, and we'll break this all down next week. That's very much in the Chiefs' favor, right? We saw Fangio in Miami last year, and every time the Chiefs played them, the underneath stuff that the Chiefs like to feature now, all the horizontal stretches that they run, all the passes up to 10 yards that they run, I think fits really well to beat Fangio's defense.
Yeah, but Philadelphia's rebuilt defensive line is a real factor now. Like Kansas City's not going to fix that left tackle spot by the Super Bowl. I would assume they will still start Joe Thuney at left tackle. I doubt they go back to DJ Humphries even with 2 weeks. Like they just won't want that risk. So they're going in with the same bullseye on the left side of that offensive line that they did in the championship game. And okay, Buffalo couldn't take advantage of that, but Philadelphia, I mean, Jalen Carter is a wrecking machine inside. Milton Williams had a great game. Nolan Smith has done damage. Like they're deep on that defensive line. They can get after the Chiefs' offensive line. And yeah, look, that offense is pretty well suited to attacking the scheme that Fangio brings, but the playmakers that they have on the defensive line, Quinyon Mitchell on the outside, like Zach Bond, the forced fumbles that they've been able to make consistently, like it's not an easy defense to attack.
And 2 years ago, we saw Jalen Hurts, other than a fumble that got returned for a touchdown, game of his life, man. He played outstanding against Spags defense, made a couple big-time throws down the field to A.J. Brown. I think the Eagles, offensively, probably going to need a similar performance as today. Can Saquon, right? I mean, hear me properly. Take away a 60-yarder, what do the stats look like? Not taking it. Can he break one away, or can you steal a touchdown with Saquon against this Chiefs defense? I think they might have that opportunity, right? James Cook had a lot of room this week. Joe Mixon had a lot of room last week. So Chiefs defense, I think, has got to play a little bit better in this game against Philadelphia. So some housekeeping that we need to talk about. Then we're going to talk about the coaching hires, right? Dallas Cowboys and Las Vegas Raiders have hired coaches. We want to break those down in a minute. We're going to the Senior Bowl. We'll have more on that. But Super Bowl-wise, we'll have a full Super Bowl preview in a week. Then we'll be out there, Sam. We're going to be out in New Orleans for all the festivities. Hoping to see Chiefs fans, Eagles fans, or anybody else that's down in Nolens for the whole week. We'll be there pretty much Monday to Monday. So starting next week.
Yeah. Should be fun. First time at the Senior Bowl for me, so I'm excited to check that out.
Before we get to the coaching hires and a little Senior Bowl preview, Check the Mic brought to you by our friends over at Timeline. So you get 10% off your order of MitoPure over at timeline.com/checkthemic. New sponsor here for Check the Mic. MitoPure is a supplement that can help you because it encourages cellular renewal. It works by promoting an essential cellular cleanup process that clears out dysfunctional mitochondria, aka your cell's battery packs. So there's no supplements on the market that have better clinical research shown to be effective at targeting the effects of age-related cellular decline. With regular use, you'll see and feel the difference in the form of improved energy levels, better workouts, faster recovery, more endurance, and more. In fact, MitoPure is shown to deliver double-digit increases in muscle strength and endurance without a change in exercise. This is your year to be your best, most energized, most revitalized so awaken the strength, power, and resilience already in you with the first and only supplement clinically proven to rejuvenate health at the cellular level. Again, Timeline is offering 10% off your order of MitoPure. Go to timeline.com/checkthemic. That's TIMELINE.com/checkthemic. Get your MitoPure sent your way, Sam. Dallas Cowboys have hired Brian Schottenheimer as their head coach. Schotty is just the 10th head coach in Dallas history. Your thoughts? Friday news dump by the Dallas Cowboys.
That was Florio's tweet, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like the most, the team who pursues headlines and interests and stories and media buzz more than any other franchise in football dumped this out at Friday at 10 p.m. That's how crappy and underwhelming a hire it is, that even the team is like, let's just bury this late on a Friday and hope nobody notices. I mean, we talked about this with Ari, right, on the show. Like, I don't understand why they would. This is the one area where, like, there's no cap, like, there's no restriction. Go big, go hire somebody that's going to move the needle, go throw money at, the hottest name out there, the guy that you think is the best. Like, if you think that this is, he's always talking about with the talent on this roster. If you think the roster's that talented, throw a truckload of money at the best coach you can think of to come and get the most out of that talent. Instead, it's just like, well, we know this guy and he's cheap, so let's hire him and then just hope nobody really notices.
Thank you for Jared in the chat reminding us, first reported here. He's saying we first reported. We first confirmed Schotty going to the Cowboys like Thursday morning, Sam. Forget this Friday afternoon news dump. We already reported it on Thursday. But Pete Carroll signed, with the Raiders first. We've got all the Liam Cohen mess as well that went down. But they were talking to Pete Carroll as well, and I think there was reports that, we had a report that it was done with Schotty, which was true. There were conflicting reports that maybe they still wanted to talk to Pete Carroll, then he goes to the Raiders, then they're like, hey, we're going with Brian Schottenheimer. I mean, my basic take on it was, as I said the other day, they're ordering from a different menu, right? I don't know. I am hesitant to criticize coaching moves until I see more evidence. Like when Jason Garrett was there year after year after year, and there was the same problems and no improvement, it felt okay to say, okay, maybe Jason Garrett's not the guy, and they kept sticking with him. But right now, like, I don't know if Brian Schottenheimer is going to do a good job or not. One other thing I want to add here, just saying, he was the offensive coordinator in name, didn't call plays, and he was the guy that was the OC for Seattle in 2019. I'm just saying he has been present in and around Russell Wilson for his best season, Dak Prescott for his best season. I'm just saying those two things are true. Now, when I say they're ordering from a different menu, they weren't competing with anyone for Schotty's services, right? I don't even think he had an interview. I don't even know if he's had a head coaching interview in the last 10 years. So they were not competing with anyone. And they said, this has to be our guy. So they're ordering from a different menu. At the end of the day, though, I don't know. Like, none of us actually know, other than no one else wanted him as their head coach, and Dallas did.
Yeah. It feels kind of like a Jason Garrett hiring, though. Like, it's like, it just feels unambitious. Like, you're right. Maybe he'll be good, right? Because there's a lot of unknown about all this, and people that we think will be great suck, and people that nobody necessarily thinks are going to be amazing turn out to be really good head coaches, right? Dan Campbell has turned out to be a superstar, whereas at the time he gets hired and he's talking about biting kneecaps, everyone thinks he's going to be like a joke candidate, right? An old school meathead that's a disaster. So nobody really knows. But we said this last time. I think in order to, like, you start with a different starting point here. Like, there's no reason to think Schottenheimer is going to be good at this job And the unknown is like, well, maybe he will be. Whereas with other guys, like Ben Johnson has an awful lot of good things on his resume, and there's many reasons to think that those will translate and he'll be good, but we don't know. Maybe he'll suck, right? You're starting from the complete opposite standpoint. And for a team like Dallas that, won 12 games 3 consecutive times, that has a lot of championships in their history, that at one point, was hiring these marquee coaches. I mean, their first head coaches. They went Tom Landry. They went Jimmy Johnson when Jerry bought the team. Then they went Barry Switzer. Like all these guys were like superstar coaches plucked from college or whatever. You bring in Bill Parcells to right the ship after a couple of guys had steered it, upon stony ground. Wade Phillips. But then this weirdness starts where it's like Jason Garrett comes in just because he's familiar with the Cowboys, and you give him like an endless amount of rope to run the thing overboard. And then you have Mike McCarthy comes in. Okay, he's got some pedigree. It's sort of stagnated, and you eventually decide to just let him leave. And now it's like, well, we know Brian Schottenheimer, so let's give him the gig. It's not the way anybody else is doing this. This.
Now, there were reports that it's Jerry Jones, who's still Jerry Jones, and the guy that we know that wants the Barry Switzers and Jimmy Johnsons of the world, and that it's Stephen Jones, who's on the cheaper side and wants to, for whatever reason, right, in an uncapped head coaching search. And so, to me, here's the bottom line for the Cowboys for me, Sam, is the consistent dichotomies and confusion, right? They want to make the biggest splash when it comes to, we're going to wait on Dak and then make a big announcement about his contract, and we're going to wait on CeeDee Lamb, and we're going to wait on Micah Parsons. We want to be in the news. And then they go Friday news dump head coach. They're a great regular season team. Great team. They look like one of the best all-around teams in the league, the last few years, if you add it all up. But then they can't win in the playoffs. And they say they want to win. Jerry wants to win. All he wants to do is win. But he's actually unbelievably loyal. And then they have a great front office. Like, they have great scouting. They've been one of the best drafting teams. They've built one of the best teams, or top 5 drafting team over the last 10 years. But they're awful at the other team building stuff, which is, second tier free agency and trades and maximizing the cap and maximizing contracts. So for every good, there's a not good with Dallas that seemingly are pushing against each other.
But this belies all of the talk, right? Like, why last season was such a farce is because Jerry Jones comes out after the season and says, we're all in for next year, right? And then they followed up being that all-in comment with like sitting there on their hands during free agency, doing nothing, spending nothing, and then hoping that the draft like bailed them out, right? Those two things don't go together. It's like it's a contradiction. And this is the same thing, right? You can't talk up your ambition and your desire to win above all else. And all I want to do is make the Dallas Cowboys a world championship team again. You cannot reconcile that with hiring Brian Schottenheimer and then dumping that out on a Friday at 10 p.m., right? It would be one thing if they actually genuinely thought that Brian Schottenheimer is like an amazing head coaching candidate and you guys are just idiots because you don't see it. Like, we've seen him from inside the building. We knew. And so, we're going to fanfare, trumpets, right? Exactly like any other brilliant head coaching hire. But the fact that they dumped that out on Friday evening shows that they know he's not. They know it's not a serious candidate. So maybe they'll get lucky and he'll end up being better than they think he is. But the reality is they think this is the same joke candidate that everybody else does, right? So you can't talk about wanting to win a championship and being all in and I just want to win above everything else and then make this move. You can do one or the other. If you want to like talk big and do everything you can to, at least people like Jimmy Haslam or whatever, like at least they're making crazy moves. You might criticize the morality of the moves and say
at least
they're bad,
crazy moves.
But like at least they're doing it, right? They're going, we want to win and we're willing to do whatever it takes, and we're including selling our moral soul for, somebody like Deshaun Watson. But at least they're like putting their money where their mouth is and trying to do this. Jerry Jones is like talking that game, but then hiring Brian Schottenheimer. It's like you can't, and then talking about being all in and then signing nobody. It's like you're not being serious. Like you're just talking and hoping everyone's going to buy it.
Let's see what happens, Sam. Let's see what happens. Pete Carroll to the Las Vegas Raiders. 31st season in NFL coaching. So he takes a year off after mutually parting ways with Seattle, and he's back. And there's never been a more fascinating division, right, of coaches with Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, and Pete Carroll. I mean, not just because they're old and experienced. My God, I mean, all Super Bowl, winning coaches, guys that have been to the Super Bowl. You just can't beat this division. And so the Raiders now go John Spytek, coming from the Bucs as the general manager. He is a scout, man, believes in scouting full board and maybe not anything analytical. And Pete Carroll, maybe not analytical either. And so in an analytical world in the NFL, two guys who have had a ton of success, but John Spytek now as general manager, Pete Carroll as the head coach of the Raiders.
And Tom Brady also has no interest in anything analytical based off what he says in his job as an announcer. So nobody in that building at the moment appears to have any real interest in analytics. But it is a fascinating hiring. I mean, Carroll is really interesting because that was one of those sort of firings where it's like it's just gotten stale, and we're just going to go in a different direction because we think it's just lost resonance and it's not having the impact that it used to have. And even if you're not doing a bad job, we just feel like the message isn't getting through anymore, and we're just going to go in some kind of different direction. And it's not like he'd forgotten how to coach or his scheme had gotten, it was like outdated. It still functioned, and yet moving to Mike Macdonald did make a difference to the defense. So I'm kind of fascinated. Like, on the one hand, the last time Carroll was out of the game, at all, he did one of those, like, let's go away, let's analyze everything, let's come back, and then he crushed it right at USC. But that was like decades ago. Like, it's completely not applicable anymore to, like, who knows what he's been doing in the last year off. And then obviously the elephant in the room for the Raiders is they still have no quarterback really, or any sensible pathway through to one. Like,
you know what though, Sam, as I'm thinking through this, think way back. I think Carroll's first year in Seattle was 2010. They set the transaction record, right, for the most players playing for the Seahawks that season.
Yeah.
And this is what the Raiders, when Dave Ziegler came there a couple years ago with Josh McDaniels, and we said, where are the Raiders? You're in this division with the Chiefs, and you kind of just made the playoffs, but it felt fake, and you overachieved. Do you just completely reset? And they said, nope, we're trading for Devontae Adams, right? We're re-upping Derek Carr. That's what we're doing. So they were half in, half out, and they're sitting here in the same spot. I could see Spytek. And by the way, Jordan Rodriguez podcast, The Play Callers, she did a segment on not play callers, but more front office executives, and Spytek was one of the interviews there. It's a good interview. You should go check it out, Podcast Land. I could see them taking a year. And now Pete Carroll's old, man. He's 73, but reset the culture, reset everything. I could see them taking a year to just get their people in, completely overhauling the thing, and then building it up from there. So maybe they don't need the quarterback right away, and they're willing to full rebuild and say, okay, the goal has to be compete with the Chiefs and the Chargers and Broncos in 2 years, not this year. So maybe and that's weird because he's 73, but Pete Carroll does not act like a 73-year-old. High energy. He's a culture guy. I heard other people say this. I agree. Culture guy to reset things for the Raiders.
Yeah. I'm fascinated to see it take place and to see what they do. You're right. Like, they had a monster turnover when he first rocked up at Seattle. But he's also doing it with a totally new partner, I guess, or front office. Like, it's going to be it's not just Pete Carroll. Obviously, it's Pete Carroll with Spytek and Tom Brady doing whatever the hell he does is his role within that ownership structure. I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, and I know the chat saying, Pete Carroll, 73, he doesn't have time for a rebuild. I could see him reset the culture for a couple of years and then pass it off to someone, right? Be a part of getting the Raiders back on track, even if you're not the guy that's taking them to the promised land in 3 or 4 years. Who knows? But yeah, interesting hire by the Raiders, and just a fascinating division of coaches going up against each other. I've never seen anything like that in the AFC West. But it's all going to run through Kansas City once again. They're back in the Super Bowl, as we know. We'll give you anything else on the coaching hires, Sam?
Well, we have the. Is it done or is it just the rumor? The part of it is done. Bobby Slowik has been let go by the Houston Texans. So you got that part. But then the report was that Chip Kelly was going to be in for that job. Has that happened or was that just.
I did not hear that. Um, Bobby Slowik, rest in peace. He's not dead, but just fired as offensive coordinator and no longer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Chip Kelly is at the top of the list apparently for this job.
interesting. And so he was not at Ohio State when CJ Stroud was there. So it's not necessarily a Stroud connection, but man, Chip's coming off a national title as offensive coordinator at Ohio State. He backed out of the UCLA head coaching job and went to Ohio State, opted into that gig, and he was in his bag during the playoff run. He did a great job getting the ball into those playmakers' hands. A fascinating run where Chip Kelly went from super innovative. I mean, remember back his 2013. I mean, first off, college innovative at UNH, at Oregon, 2013 in the NFL. I mean, he's got Nick Foles, 27 touchdowns, 2 picks. 2014 in the NFL, even then, got the best year out of Mark Sanchez. And then it just kind of disappeared. And he went back to college, and he went back and was like, okay, they were okay at UCLA. And now he's back again at Ohio State. I think he's grown run game wise, and he's evolved a little bit. So I think that'd be an interesting one. He's never been an NFL offensive coordinator. He was only a head coach. He had the 1 year in San Francisco as well in there that was awful. And so an interesting second chance, I think, for Chip Kelly, who was one of the best offensive minds about 10 years ago. And that's not a knock. I'm just describing what it was.
Yeah, well, I think his offense is one of those examples of a system that comes in but does not evolve radically, right? Like this is why Kyle Shanahan in particular, McVay, all these guys, Andy Reid, why they're so good is that their system changes year on year on year. It's evolving, it's changing, it's developing, it's adapting, and it's not the same, right? If you look at this, what Kyle Shanahan is running now is not the same as what he was running in 2016, which isn't the same as he was running in 2012. Like it's changing. But Kelly like took the NFL by storm when he showed up with his offense, with his college system, and it was very difficult. It was very unusual relative to what everybody was seeing on a weekly basis, and it was killing everybody. But then after a while, like the league is at a different level. It figured it out. It understood what the tells were, like what the kind of the dynamic, the breakdown was, and he didn't really adapt it. And so once it got figured out, it's like, well, okay, now it's just got a level, and it doesn't have the same. It's not able to just take anybody and turn them into 27 touchdowns, 2 picks, and be an unstoppable force. Now defenses have the read on how to slow it down, and you need version 2. And version 2 never really came along.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, I think, look, the Texans looked unprepared up front. It was our friend Bobby calling plays. They looked unprepared up front. The offensive line, I don't think the talent was great. The execution was awful, though, for most of the year. It got, highlighted even more in the playoff game against the Chiefs where Stroud got sacked 8 times. There were already rumblings out there in the media. I think Burt Breer had, hey, Stroud's upset or whatever those things are. And it also just highlights how crazy this business is, man. I mean, Bobby interviewed for a head coaching job this cycle, by the way, but for multiple jobs last cycle because he came in and we're like, we didn't know Stroud was this good. And is it Bobby? He's the next guy coming from the Shanahan tree. Is it Slowik? What is it? Let's interview him. And he goes back to Houston, gets a pay bump and says, hey, I'm going to stay as the OC. And now he's out a year later.
Yeah, I mean, the report was that he was basically the front runner for the Seattle job, but didn't necessarily want to take that job and gets the pay bump from Houston to go back. But like potentially he could have been a head coach a year ago, and then he ends up getting fired a year later when the team made the playoffs and won a game. It's not like they didn't have like Dallas' season, right? Or like a complete disaster. There were definitely some questions about that offense over the course of the year. Like, as you said, this offensive line all the way through the year looked like they had never encountered a twist, a stunt, like anything complicated. And every time they saw it, it was a train wreck. Now, is that on Bobby? Is that on the offensive line coach? Is that on CJ Stroud? Is it on a combination of all of them? I from the outside, it's hard to know. But on the one hand, big picture wise, it's like he didn't go from being a great coach to garbage in the last 12 months, right? You didn't forget everything he knew a year ago when you thought he was the hot coach to hire as your head coach. So that always seems a little silly to me. Like the offense took a step back. Well, we got to fire this guy now. Okay.
And it's
Particularly
but
when
it's
you look at it and you say that offensive line from just the starting from if you had the starting five that you wanted all season long, it would have been a bad offensive line. And you didn't have the starting five you wanted all season long. In fact, it rarely had the starting five that you wanted all season long. So what was a bad unit on paper was chopping and changing all season long, and you lost two of your top three wide receivers.
yes.
I mean, look, maybe he had some faults in play calling in the coaching that group up, but the dude was dealing with an awful lot of crappy hands in this as well. So to me, that feels kind of rash to fire him, but we are biased.
I agree. I'm trying to be unbiased with the whole thing. Obviously, there were issues, right? There were certainly issues in pass pro, and not just, like I said, not just the one-on-ones, whether it's being coached up, because the O-line coach gets fired as well. Whether it's the way they were coaching him up, the protection, his protection schemes got attacked, in addition to just the personnel issues that they had in Houston. So we'll keep an eye on the Houston offensive coordinator job. Got to tell you about our friends over at Orgain. As a former professional athlete, I care about what I put into my body, especially when it comes to protein. That's why we're so pumped to be sponsored by Orgain. Wish I had this when I was a player. Orgain believes real nutrition has the power to make a real difference in people's lives. Orgain's new 30-gram complete protein shakes offer protein-packed real nutrition designed to satisfy your cravings without any added sugar. Plus, they're excellent sources of premium ultra-filtered protein with all 9 essential amino acids. Orgain's products are handcrafted with high-quality ingredients. I like to drink these right after my workouts. Got my New Year workouts going. Chug my 30-gram protein shake. I like the vanilla, I like the chocolate, and they're convenient. They're convenient enough to bring on the go when we go to the Senior Bowl, Super Bowl these next couple of weeks. We could pack them pretty easily. And if you're not just looking for protein powders, they've got bars, they have shakes, they have tons of other nutritional products. Orgain has products that the entire family will love. So there are no quick fixes when it comes to your health. If you want more protein, give Orgain 30-gram protein shakes a try. Head to Orgain.com/checkthemic and use code checkthemic for 30% off your order. That's the best offer you'll find, but you'll have to use the code checkthemic for 30% off. One more time, 30% off. Head to Orgain.com/checkthemic. The code is checkthemic. All right, Sam, we're off to tomorrow. So this is Monday's show here on a Sunday night. You get it early. We are off to the Senior Bowl. Your first time down in Mobile. We're going to be flying tomorrow. If you're not already subscribed to the YouTube channel and with us here, hit that subscribe button. We're going to bring all sorts of new content that will mostly be YouTube exclusive, hopefully some behind the scenes from on the field. We're going to be on the field during practice. We're going to bug our boss, Tannenbaum. He's right there, man. He's like right there on TV on the side. We could just go like run into the shot, yell into the microphone. We could be a big nuisance. Hopefully don't get him fired. So we'll have all the behind the scenes stuff at the Senior Bowl. I've already pre-recorded a little preview from Jim Nagy, executive director of the Senior Bowl. So that'll drop sometime this week, both in podcast land and here on YouTube. And so we'll break down the players, who's down there, what to look for during Senior Bowl week, all the practices. They're on NFL Network, I believe, ESPN, and then the game is next Saturday. So we're going to have a lot of fun down there this week, but it'll be kind of like a weird podcast schedule because this is Monday. Nagy preview comes out at some point, and I don't know if there's going to be a traditional third podcast this week. So you just have to subscribe to YouTube and see all the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Yeah, we're going to be working on collecting some stuff that we don't normally do, but it means that the regular schedule programming might be a little bit different.
Yeah, and then same thing with the Super Bowl, right? So we're going to come right back and then go back down south next Monday to Monday at the Super Bowl in New Orleans. So a lot of fun stuff happening soon. We also have some stuff we can't really completely unveil, but we're looking at a new studio. We may have found a place, and we're real excited to kind of not rebrand, but we'll have a different look. We're gonna have a different look in the coming months at some point. So real excited to be able to put that together, unveil it. Hopefully before the draft, we'll see what happens. But exciting times here at Check the Mic. So appreciate everybody for joining, and here we are headed to the Super Bowl, Sam.
hopefully this one gets locked in and doesn't fall through like the last one.
Yeah, I didn't mean to jinx it early, but there's like multiple. We have multiple options here. Something has to work, right? Has to.
You would hope.
You would hope. Anyway, thanks to everybody for tuning in. Thanks to everybody for being here live with us. Enjoy this week with no football. Sorry, but follow us along with the Senior Bowl. You could press the end button, Sam. We're out of here.
Cool.
See you again this week sometime. Check the mic.
Don't forget to like and subscribe while I'm